a sec. Okay, now today Kathleen and I are here. Kathleen's based in Sydney and I'm based in South Australia.
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, for those that may not know us, we're both migration agents, registered migration agents here in Australia, and we have a particular area that we focus on in the immigration space, and it's more to do with New Zealand passport holders, New Zealand citizens living in Australia. We've also been branching out and looking at more at the Pacific Islands, visa options and things that are going on for the types of visas that a lot of the Pacific Island people come into Australia on, other than with a New Zealand passport. And today we want to talk about some information for people thinking about moving to Australia, particularly New Zealand citizens. And the reason being is that there's very little information out there to help educate people about moving to Australia. So we want to make sure that we kind of cover this topic. We do put our videos up on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch them, and we also leave them on our Facebook page. So if people want to go back and have a look through our library of videos that we've been building up, you can do so there. So today's topic, we'll be talking about moving to Australia, what things to think about, what things to look out for, and what some of our recommendations are. And also we're very excited because today is the first time we have a real live guest join us, and our real live guest is a past client of ours who has just gone through the immigration process recently, and he's going to join us in a little while to share his experience. So we know that people out there really appreciate hearing from others that have gone through the process, what it was like for them, what did they do, how did they do it, and all those types of things. So we'll be getting our guest, his name's Edwin, he'll be sharing some of his thoughts today, and we have got a few guests lined up for the following Fridays as well. So very excited about that. We've put out an invitation to our past clients, so if you haven't seen the invitations, then we've posted it on Facebook, and you are interested in sharing your experience, how the immigration worked for you, and you'd like to get in touch with us and be one of our guests, we'd love to have you. So let us know.
I'm really looking forward to hearing from Edwin, because I kind of started a bit after his process was well underway, and I got to hear about, some of the things that were happening through his case. I'm really excited to be hearing, his story and his family's story.
Yeah. And you were with me that day we got the news. We were on a video call together, and I was so excited. So today I'll start introducing this topic of moving to Australia. We were meant to talk about this last week, but we ran out of time, so we've shifted it to this week. And we may get interrupted partway through because Edwin's actually he works at a high school, and he's going to be joining us during one of his breaks. So he'll jump in as soon as he's available, probably in about 10 minutes. So I'll start this presentation, and then that'll be disrupted for a little bit while we interview Edwin, and then we'll jump back into this topic and finish off discussing this. If any questions come through from any of our listeners and followers today, we're happy to try and get those answered during our live today as well. And I think we might have a couple of questions already there. And you were with me that day we got the news, have not lined up. Okay, are we still in there, Kathleen?
Yes, we're still going.
Okie, moving to Australia. Now, often for years, all I talk about is New Zealand citizens living in Australia, but today is the first time where I shift that focus to New Zealanders wanting to move to Australia. Now, the reason this is becoming an important topic is because, of course, with the borders opened, lots of people are contemplating whether they're going to move across. And it's not unusual for New Zealand citizens to want to move to Australia. They've either, for a variety of reasons, normally because they've got family here, they've got work opportunities, the climate, depending what part of Australia you go to live in. I live in South Australia. It's it does get hot in summertime, but the rest of the year is a lot like home. Very cool and freezing actually in the winter time. And yeah, there's all sorts of reasons why people would want to move to Australia. Okay, so let me see if I can. Just a quick, brief disclaimer. You can see that, can't you, Kathleen?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Just a brief disclaimer. The information we talk about today is not considered official advice. This is just our thoughts on what is going on in the immigration space for us. Our information that we provide is relevant for the date that we present this. So today being Friday the 13th, and it's it's just information that we know is current as of today. Immigration law does change frequently. In fact, it's the most amended area of law in Australia. So whatever information we provide could change, and it's really important that we as professionals keep ourselves up to speed, which is why we have to do lots of ongoing training throughout the year, regardless of how long you've been an agent for, because you need to keep on top of what all the changes are. So the information we're sharing today is really about what's current at this moment. When I talk about New Zealand citizens, I'm referring to anyone who comes to Australia on their New Zealand passport and they're granted a visa based on their New Zealand passport. And it does include people from Tokelau, Niue, Cook Islands and Samoa in certain circumstances, because laws of the past can influence the way immigration works today. So there's all sorts of reasons why people will come in on a New Zealand passport. And a lot of New Zealand passport holders, interestingly enough, have never actually been to New Zealand ever in their whole life. And it is possible to hold a New Zealand passport in those circumstances. Okay, let's just start off with a few basic statistics. On average, there's roughly around 570,000 New Zealand passport holders that live in Australia. So that's approximately 10% of the New Zealand population, which is a large percentage for our country. And we make up approximately 2% of the entire population in Australia. Now, Australian and New Zealand economists have been predicting that now that the borders are open with COVID, because we've had all of these border closures due to the pandemic, they're predicting roughly around 20,000 New Zealand citizens are estimated to migrate to Australia in the next 12 months. So that's quite a large portion of people planning on coming across. And one of the key questions we get asked is, but are New Zealanders like other migrants? Like, why should the information be different for New Zealanders as opposed to other migrants? When you move to a country, surely, there's a migration process. And for many New Zealand citizens, they would be aware that they've either travelled to Australia before, they might have lived in Australia before. All we've ever needed was a New Zealand passport, or even pre-1981, you didn't even need a passport before that time. So the immigration process looks something like this. We normally fly over, we go through customs. Oops, how did that happen? Oh, I'm going the wrong way now. Hang on, I've got to go backwards. So we go through this immigration process here. And I'll click that. So typically the process looks like us presenting our passport at customs. We would have filled out an incoming passenger card. These have shifted to digital incoming passenger cards now, but for the purposes of this, I'll just use what we're familiar with, most of us. The incoming passenger card, and that's it for us. We don't fill out a visa application form like any other migrant, so that's one of the key differences. And unbeknownst to probably most all New Zealand citizens, the incoming passenger card is filled out by everybody that comes into Australia, whether you're an Australian citizen or not. However, for New Zealand citizens, this is considered a visa application. So when we fill out this card, we are actually filling out a visa application form, even though it doesn't say that on the card.
Exactly.
All right, when you come through immigration, we are automatically granted a visa called a TY444 visa, which is part of it's a special category visa that was created just for New Zealand citizens back in 1994. And so we're automatically granted this. We're not given a printout letter. We're not sent an email to say you have been granted this visa. New Zealanders present their passport, give their incoming passenger card, walk through the gates and press say you're in Australia. You can live here, you can work here, you can just be here for holiday, whatever. That's it. But actually, the automated process, once you are allowed to enter Australia after being immigration cleared, is we all hold this 444 visa, unless we have specifically applied for another type of visa or have become dual citizens. So for most of us, this is what we're given. We are the only migrant that does not get given, and I've said this many times, I'll say it again and again and again, we are the only migrant that does not get notified of our visa status. We are the only migrant that does not get given a visa grant letter to help alert us that we hold a visa. We are the only migrant that is not given any information about what our visa is, whether it's a permanent visa or a temporary visa. Are there conditions on this visa? See, all other migrants get a visa grant letter, every single one of them.
I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's right.
And I think that's why there's a lot of confusion as well, because when New Zealand citizens arrive, they then start to hear all this other terminology like eligible New Zealand citizen, permanent resident, or, you know, residing in Australia permanently. And then they just assume, well, that's me, isn't it? I'm going to live here permanently. I'm a permanent resident. Yeah. I'm an eligible New Zealand citizen. Yeah. But they don't understand that their status is temporary. They're here temporarily.
Exactly. And the term protected and non-protected SCV holder, like what do these things really mean? So I did go through this last week, so if you want to know more about the details of our immigration status, you can watch last week's live video. But just for the purposes of this week, I'll touch on this very quickly and briefly. Immigration statuses are like driver's licenses. You start with an L plate, which is like a temporary visa, P plate, which is like a permanent visa, and a full license, which is equivalent to Australian citizenship. Now, have a guess what the TY444 visa is. Is it an L plate, a P plate, or a full license? Definitely not a full license because it's not Australian citizenship. So temporary resident is the L plate, as I've just said, P plate, and these are just for visual effects to help people kind of hopefully connect the dots, because it can be quite abstract, all of this information.
This is definitely the teacher coming out of you.
Yeah. And I'm very much a visual learner, so I feel like lots of people are like me out there that like to see pictures and things to go with what someone is talking about. So here I have identified and put in the slide that the TY444, as you said before, is a temporary visa. And I've put in brackets here, for life.
Exactly. Yeah.
A lot of New Zealanders come here and think, because I live here permanently, that means I'm a permanent resident. But it doesn't. We hold this temporary visa for life. Mm-hmm. And, for life can be a very long time. Especially if you come here as a baby and, that's you're on a temporary visa for life. It's also known as non-protected, so sometimes you'll hear this terminology being used, and it really applies to New Zealand citizens, especially that arrived in Australia after the 26th of February 2001 onwards. So this is now over 20 years ago, and that includes today. So anyone that comes over, moves to Australia at this time, you're non-protected. The only time you're not non-protected is if you meet some of the criteria from 2001. So, for example, if you happen to be in Australia on the 26th of February 2001, you're protected. You're not non-protected, even though you've come back to live in Australia all these years later. So I do talk about that in detail in the previous week. Now, I wanted to touch on citizenship at birth, because this is something that does affect a lot of families having children. So the rule about citizenship at birth is that children born to an Australian citizen or permanent resident or eligible New Zealand citizen, that's the same as that's someone who kind of holds an L and a P plate together, and that's a bit confusing, and I won't go into that today. Again, that's in last week's live, but there is one particular group of New Zealanders, the only migrant of its kind, that hold a temporary visa but are also recognised as permanent residents at the very same time. If any of these groups of people have children born in Australia, so an eligible New Zealand citizen or protected SCV holder, or someone who holds a permanent visa, or someone who's an Australian citizen, if they have children born in Australia, then their children are citizens at birth. And there's also another period of time where children born before the 20th of August 1986. That goes off into a whole other area, but let's just talk about today. In today's terms, these are the statuses that at least one parent must hold for a child to be recognised as an Australian citizen at birth if they're born in Australia. The other rule is the 10th birthday rule, or the 10-year rule. This applies to children who are born in Australia and have resided in Australia for the first 10 years of their life. They're allowed to go overseas for holidays, but they need to have been living here for that first 10 years of their life. If they have, they become Australian citizens on their 10th birthday, regardless of the status of mum or dad. And this is a universal rule across the board. So it's by operation of law. Now, I wanted to point this out because I've heard this a number of times over the years. People will say, well, my child was 6 months old when we moved to Australia and we've been here for over 10 years, so they are a citizen now. So what's happened is they've confused somewhere along the lines that so long as they've been living here for 10 years, their child is recognised as an Australian citizen. If only that were true. But unfortunately, this rule only applies to children who were born in Australia and they had to have lived here for the first 10 years. And that's how that rule works. Okay, skipping through. What permanent visas are available? So for New Zealanders wanting to move to Australia, in order to not come in on a TY444 visa, the temporary visa, the only way around that is to apply for the P plate. And that's a permanent visa of some sort. And I've listed them here on our screen. So you've got your family streams, you've got your work stream, and I've put in brackets here deliberately, except the subclass 189 New Zealand stream visa. Now, we have heard on many occasions New Zealand citizens refer to this visa as an option that they can apply for even though they've arrived in recent years. This visa, and I do talk about this last week as well, this visa is only available to New Zealand citizens who've been residing in Australia on or before the 19th of February 2016. So anyone that comes to live in Australia from the 20th of February 2016 onwards cannot ever apply for that visa at this time. All right, I'm going to pause there and welcome our guest, Edwin. So we'll give him a moment to get set up. Good morning, Edwin.
Hi, Edwin.
Good morning, Harley. How are you? Am I audible?
Yes. You are. We can hear you.
And
nice.
Visible, and visible too?
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us in your break time even.
Thank you.
Sorry, Edna, do you want to just stop sharing just so that Edwin can, we can all be shown on the screen. That's it.
Oh.
Thank you.
There we go.
There you go.
So, Edwin, how much time do you have with us this morning?
No, I have time now. Only thing at that time was I have time till the end, no problem.
Okay, yeah. All right then. Great. Oh, this is so exciting. We've got a few other people that have come forward that would like to join us on our lives on Friday. So you're our very first one, and we've already started booking in people for each Friday, which is exciting.
Sure.
And I understand you had a very special occasion this week.
Yes, it was 25 years. And
25 beautiful years. Congratulations. Silver wedding anniversary, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Lovely.
Yes.
Oh,
Well, Kathleen hasn't met you before, and like she was saying before, she was really looking forward to meeting you because she joined us earlier this year, and of course, I've known you since June, May
yes.
last year.
No, no, I think it was June. No, May end, I think. No, was it? Yeah, May end, I think. You had come.
Yeah, yeah. So, we just wanted to. I know we sent you some questions to have a think about, and I thought we could go through. Kathleen, do you want to? Kathleen will just kind of lead the, because I do all the talking all the time, so I try and give her a chance to
But she's
just.
so good at it, isn't
Is
she,
this
Edwin?
is this the Kathleen that you've been talking about who joined your team, Arena?
Yes.
Ah, all right. Kathleen, she's been speaking very, very highly about you.
Oh, she's very kind. She's very kind, and I'm really lucky to be here working with her. And you know, I think what people don't realize is when clients come to us, it's like a really long-term relationship with you. We get to know you, we get to know your families, and because I came in very late in the piece, I came in like probably as you were waiting for your decision on your visa, and then issues that arise. I'd really love for you to just start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background, including when you moved permanently to Australia.
Okay, all right. Oh well, so what happened is I'm actually originally born in Africa, and yeah, so but as a kid, 4 years something, we came to the place where my parents are origins from, which is Goa, which is a small town which was ruled by the Portuguese for 450 years on the west coast of India, which is just south of Bombay. Yeah, so anyway, lived there for many many years, but my heart was always saying that, I don't belong here. I don't know what it was. I mean, we studied there, we had a good job and all those things, but my heart was always saying I was not part of that system. And so in 95, I got a nice opportunity to actually travel to Holland and then in Portugal and England and all those things. And that's the time when I really felt, okay, now this is the kind of thing what I'm looking for. Maybe it was also watching the movies and stuff like that. Yeah, and then 97 we got. I mean 96 I met Anna. Then after our courtship and all that, we began to talk about things. And 97 when we got married, I always told her, I said I want to go overseas and that kind of thing. And Anna being the only child, only daughter, and in India you have only girl, or she'll always be close to the parents and blah blah blah. She said, "Oh yeah, that's all right," knowing fully well that it will never happen. So what happened is, I think there was for me, faith is a big part of my walk is. And so I think, long story short, I met somebody and then things worked out, and then I got an opportunity to travel to New Zealand, which was totally off the radar because we had never heard, I mean, we had only heard of Glenn Turner, who was a opening batsman for cricket. That was
Yes.
all, you know. And that was all about that we knew about New Zealand because it was so far away from Goa. And I was always traveling, thinking of going to Canada or those countries. But when this thing opened up, I just said, okay, let me try. And I don't know, everything worked out so well that the point system, I had to get 24 points, which I got just in the month of November. And January everything changed. But before that time, they had already lodged the paper, something like what Arena did for us here, lodged it in time and just got it just in time, kind of thing. And yeah, and so anyway, when we got the papers through in 2002, I walked alone into New Zealand. And I decided to take 6 months off my work, and I said I'll just see if I can survive in this land and all the thing. And I walked all alone. And the funny thing is, I remember in the flight there were the All Blacks in my flight, and I had no idea who were the All Blacks.
Oh, wow.
Honestly, I had no idea because I'm only thinking of survival. So as I walk out of the plane in Auckland, there's this huge crowd out there with a big banner and all this, all welcome home. I think they had won against the Australians in Sydney. And so anyway, And I'm walking there alone with my, because somebody was supposed to meet me and I had no idea, that kind of thing. And somebody says, have you seen the All Blacks? I said, oh, what is the All Blacks? I had no idea what the All Blacks were. So anyway, survived there for all those years, worked for, happened to work for Adidas there actually. And we were sponsoring the All Blacks. So I met quite a few of the All Blacks, Jonah Lomu and, all those Dan Carters and all those things, Richard McCaw. And after that, I think what happened is after the global financial crisis, things did not work out too well because they took all our jobs to Melbourne. And so we were made redundant. And then it was a bit of a struggle for me there. Survived for about 2 years. 2008, I lost the job. And then, 2010, I had a friend who had already come to Brisbane. And he said, what are you doing there? I can see that you're, kind of struggling and stuff like that. Why don't you come here? At least the sun will make you feel good, So I said, all right, let's try again. So it was again being away from family, and coming here. And again, things worked out well for us. Initially, I had to live with another family. And then I came in the month of June, and October, Anna and the kids joined us. And again, it was struggle initial years, but God has been good to us. Anna got a job in the teaching line, and I struggled for some time till I got this job in 2015, sorry. And and then after that we heard about 2016, I think John Key and the Prime Minister here, they signed up something and they said, oh, you can get citizenship. And but we said, oh, maybe, it was difficult for us because we had to pay for our boys to university and all that. It was quite a substantial amount. So we just allowed it to slide, as it were. Yeah. Till the last year, when one of the same friend actually, he said, what? I just heard that there's this agent coming. And this agent, she specializes with the New Zealand people, to get them Australian permanent residency. Why don't you go for it? And I said, okay. And I went with the address. I couldn't even find the address, struggle. And I think after about I reached half an hour late, I think, Arena, I think so. You were and then, I went in there and I think the way Arena was talking and, she was so confident in the way she was, and she was explaining actually every scenario, or rather a lot of scenarios, let's put it that way. Then she got a few people who actually put their hand up and said, yes, we endorse her, just as the way I'm endorsing her now. So we endorse what she did, and she helped us in these circumstances and all. She worked through things. She's so, the communication is always, upfront. And that kind of thing. I just took an instant liking to this lady. I said, oh my God, maybe things will work, kind of thing. And I think I met you after that, and I walked home. I told Anna, I said, I met this lady. And I think she is there for maybe a day or so. And if we can connect and, start a process. And she was so kind enough, she was on a holiday, yet she made the time for us, and we are so grateful to honestly, so very grateful. You've gone over and beyond.
So Edwin, can you just tell us who was actually included in your immigration matter again?
My wife Anna, and my two boys Epifanio and Eden. And
how old were they at the time that you decided to apply?
Yeah, so Epi was 22, and that was the tricky situation. Maybe if there's a opportunity, I can talk about that. And Eden was 21. Yeah. So so Anna was the main applicant, and we were the subsequent.
So what exactly, I think a lot of people are going to relate to your story so much. Thank you for sharing. And this is also why I kind of got into the industry as well, is just hearing the migration stories, people's journey from their home country. And then I have a similar story where my parents, migrated to New Zealand as well from a very tiny island, and then making that decision to leave New Zealand and then come to Australia to start again, almost essentially. So I think a lot of people are going to relate to that story, and that decision for you to finally make, to say, I'm going to stay here permanently. What am I going to do? How can I do this? And you finally meeting Edna. What was then your migration matter? What did Edna subsequently advise you to apply for? Maybe if you can just talk us through that process.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so what happened, Arena actually looked through our profile. And then what had happened, it was a bit tricky for us because, and we didn't know this till told us that once a child turns 23, he comes out of the family category into he has to be an individual sort of thing. And so that suddenly threw us, because we had no idea that this thing existed, this particular clause existed. And so in a way we were racing against time. And the second factor was that Epi was in Germany for about a year because he was doing his internship with BMW. So he was there for about 11 months and he came back only last year in February. So that was another factor, because to be part of a dependent,
Yes.
he had to the earning part had to be there, and the staying part of it, there were a lot of technical things which I don't know, only she Arina knows how to okay. But she kind of told us, you it's a long shot, but let's unless you give it a shot, we will not know the outcome. She said, let's give it. We said, yeah. And so just before, I think, end of June, she said, we'll put the papers through. But she said, don't do your medical and stuff till November, because by that time, I think 8 months or so, Epi will be in the country. And so, that kind of thing. She must have done some calculations. She's a master at this. And then, so she did that. And then in November, we did our medicals. And then again, we had our own medical conditions. So we kind of didn't know what was happening. But all along, we found that, the confidence that Arina gave us was just, she was just so positive. She said, just let's do it and don't worry and this and that, because see, when you apply for these things, you have no idea. Of course, we knew that it would be 16 to 18 months. And here we were just trying to, get it done within 6-7 months. A totally impossible situation. But she said, let's do that. And then she says, as the time comes closer, we'll say that, okay, he's getting to 23 and 1st of May, let's push it. And so anyway, we did that. And of course, oh my God, in the end, it was hearts were pounding because we had reached here because of Easter and stuff like that, 26th of April. And we were saying, oh my God, 5 days more. And then you're thinking, God, did you really want us to apply for this kind of thing?
Bring you all this way.
And then she had this brilliant idea of calling up the MPs to, just to call up the guys to see, because we are already allocated officer and all that story, And
That's right.
so, yeah, and so she had this brilliant idea of connecting her MP, and then I also went here to meet my MP, and it was, it was nice, and oh, man, yeah, we got it. Yeah.
How did you feel when you got that call from
man, I'm
Edna?
telling you, yes, so. If she was here, I would have hugged her and given her a good kiss.
On the cheek.
Of course. All of us would have done that, of course. And
yes.
Yeah, that's why I told her, anytime she comes to Brisbane, she has a home here.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so very grateful to her for, yeah.
So just to explain to everyone who might be watching, the difficulty or the issue that Edwin is talking about is his son being a dependent in this application. His son was already going to turn 23 shortly, but this particular visa must be granted before a dependent actually turns 23. So we were talking with Edwin's talking about a matter of a week, the week of his son turning 23, they still hadn't heard from the department about the outcome of their visa application. So you can understand the tension, the nervousness, and just, you know, the anxiousness of just waiting for this decision to arrive. But when that decision finally arrived, but it didn't come easy. You had to, as Edna had advised you, you had to contact your local MP and also seek some assistance through them. And that was also Edna doing a lot of advocating on this side too. So when you think about all of these things that had to happen and the advice that Edna gave you, Edwin, throughout the whole process, what do you want others to know about the importance, I suppose, of getting professional help and experienced help through matters like this? What do you want others to know?
Yeah, I think it's very important that when you start the process, only to start it right, rather than do it wrong and then, you know, come back and backward and forward. So I think getting professional advice is the key, because once you get it right from the start, and then you keep on building up, because it's not only just a matter of just, you know, putting the papers through. You have to do so many other things on the side. Like, for example, Irina did a lot of statutory declarations that we had to do. Any supporting document, anything that you know, we could lay our hands on. Like my son, he got an honors degree and all those things. Every single thing, every single certificate that will support your document has to be put through, and that's where I think the professional help comes through. So it's not a question of just putting a paper and saying, oh yeah, because I always believe, if I'm the one who's deciding upon, you know, the matter, and if I see so much of supporting documents, it should be such as say, oh wow, I want these people to be in my country, you know, I want them to do this thing. That's the kind of thing I would say. Yeah. And then the final thing also is when the thing came through, you know, Irina actually paid, you know, paid for the amount. She didn't wait for me to transfer the amount back to her. She said, you know, let it go through, kind of on 27th it was. You just paid it, you know. So that kind of trust that you build with the you know, with
Client, yeah.
the client. Yeah, I think so.
A lot of people will be thinking about that. You know, they'll be on the edge of, oh, they know of Edna, they know of other migration agents. They're, you know, on the edge of making a decision to seek assistance, but sometimes they just get held back, and they think about the money situation as well. Do you have any comments about that, about encouragement to people in terms of, you know, making that leap, taking that leap and taking that step towards getting assistance?
Yeah, I think with Irina, I would say she's not out there to make money only. You know, she's got a heart.
Yes.
I can tell you from this thing. She's got a heart, and I think she even mentioned in the talk there, says, you don't think it's only because the money. Sometimes we can even look at other matters. If you know, if you're struggling and we know the situation, you know, we are here to help. So I think the help is the essence of what migration would be. That's the way I look at it, you know. And yes, you know, obviously you have to survive, and all those things are there, you know. But I think if any one of you out there, you know, want to you know, really want to try this migration thing, I would say go for migration, because they have they have the expertise, yes, but they also have a heart. So these are the two key things that you require, because without expertise, only having a heart, it doesn't work. And, you know, only having a heart and without, you know, having the expertise, and without, like, you know, both things are needed. And, you know, if you are, you know, on the age and deciding, I would say just go for it. Trust me on this, go for it. I know what is good when I see it. And our case, you know, getting it done within what, 7-8 months is just a testimony. And yeah. So if you're sitting on the edge, I would say, you know, go for it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Edwin. This is your story is the story is, it's really why we get into this business. You know, it's not really to make money. If you think of all the things that we have to come through in order to become a registered migration agent, all the things that Ed and I had to come through in order to do this business and to set it up, it's not about the money. It really genuinely is about helping people to secure their status here in Australia. And I know Edna, she always talks about your particular case with such a warm heart, about even though it was such a difficult case, but just seeing, hearing your happiness and hearing your relief on the other side of the phone made all of that struggle and all of that difficulty worth it in the end. And we're just so happy for you and your family and your son who turned 23 as well. I'm sure he's so happy that, you know, best birthday present ever for him.
Absolutely.
To finally secure his status here in Australia.
Another thing, if I can say, Kathleen, one last thing is that I know that, you know, when the fees were given up, you know, the first breakups and all that, Irina has actually done much more than that. We cannot, certain things you cannot pay for, you know, like she's done so much more, which is not, you know, you cannot put a line and a fee for that. You cannot do that. I know that. Yeah. And yeah, I get teary because of it. So thank you so much, Irina. Thank you so very much for that. Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to be so grateful for you sharing your story today, because I know a lot of people are also thinking, oh, you know, I don't know what to do, or should I do this? But I think if they hear your story, which is so from the heart, we can tell, and it's so genuine, they're going to know that, you know, that this is an opportunity for them to secure their future here in Australia. And that's really what Mourunga Migration is all about, is helping New Zealanders and Pacific Islanders who hold New Zealand passports to become permanent residents here, so that they can live life here with no, you know, no issues, no worries about things that they might not have access to, or things that might happen to them down the track. And we just wish you all the best. You and your family all the best. I'll just ask Edna. Edna, did you have anything else to say to Edwin and before we kind of end the interview?
Yeah. Oh, look, Edwin, you know, I'm still buzzing over your case. It's, you know, some of the cases that we do, I love walking into a case knowing 100% we're going to get this case over the line. And you know, and people want that surety before they go out and on a limb. You know, that there's the financial cost, there's the stress cost, there's all the work that has to be done, and you know, people often want that guarantee that we can get it for them. You know, unfortunately we're not the judge and jury. If we were, we would be giving them out like lollipops, the permanent visas. But you know, we can only advocate and try to be as cluey with the law as possible. That's really, really important. And sometimes, you know, we walk into cases that we, on the surface, we might think, oh yes, we've got this under control. But as the case unfolds and we go, you know, start following the various processes, other things can present themselves, other challenges and hurdles. And I think we had a mixture of that with your guys' case.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just can't predict. You know, I take my hat off to you and Anna for having the heart and the courage to give it a go. You know, I'm so pleased that you made it. It was the Logan Centre information session, I think it was, up in Brisbane, wasn't it, that we met? And, you know, as much as we can be there to offer help, I always say to people that, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And we're definitely here to help, you know, anyone we possibly can. But really the onus and the, you know, the gratitude is to our clients, because you're the one that has to really take that leap of faith.
Yeah.
And with that leap of faith, you have to trust the person, the professional that you're entrusting your future in their hands. You know, we're not going out to buy a car or purchase a property, or it's not an asset. It's something it's invisible, but it's crucial if you want to call somewhere truly home, and be able to belong and be part of the democratic process, you know, to be able to vote and have a voice, and be part of your community's solutions by having a place at the table. And to me, that's what citizenship really is about. And you guys have started your journey. Of course, we know the biggest hurdle is that permanent visa. Getting off the temporary visa, it's wonderful to be allowed to live in Australia and work, permanently, as a New Zealand citizen. That's a great advantage that we have. But the enormous disadvantage, beneath the surface that most people don't see is this ongoing lack of entitlements, lack of access, lack of ability to have a voice. But, it has been an enormous pleasure to meet you and Anna face to face. I've got to know Epi especially through emails, and Epi also the week before his 23rd birthday, am I right? He graduated with honours, and he's just a brilliant, bright young man who has an enormous future ahead of him. And both of your boys actually, but we focus on Epi because we didn't have time to waste. And it really was in the 11th hour. And we also had the additional hurdle of the long weekends. Remember how we had the different long weekends in a row?
Yeah.
So we had Easter, we had Good Friday, then we had Easter Monday, and then we had Anzac. So and we kind of didn't anticipate that. I didn't, and it just kind of dawned on me. So I was really stressing. And anyway, the idea of the MP so I reached out to my local MP down here in South Australia, down the Limestone Coast, and I was so pleased with their response straight away. They were happy to jump on board. And remember, government's gone into caretaker mode.
Yes.
And, and that was the other dilemma that we had, because the availability and accessibility to MPs is quite limited now. And your MP up in, what's the area?
Ford, F-O-R-D.
Oh, that's right. Ford and Ford District. But and together, I think our MP officers communicated, and within 24 hours, I would say,
Yes, that's true.
the visa was granted. So it did make a difference. And these are the types of things that we can't predict, but experience does help us kind of learn ways around. There are certainly challenges, but thank you so much for entrusting me with this really complex matter. And I'm sure that we can't win them all, but it's wonderful when you do, and we try and win as many, particularly these complex cases that we don't know. Yeah, it was massive, and I learned heaps from your case, and I guess as a practicing registered migration agent, a lot of our knowledge can only come from experience, because you can sit there and you can go round and round and round in circles, reading policy, reading legislation, listening to other people's versions of how they went through the experiences. But until you go through it yourself, I know so much more about dependency, and we also know that with the internship that the department does accept that now, because we weren't sure if they would. So there was lots in there.
That's something that you learned. You said because you dug into some kind of legislation. Oh my God, you're a master at this.
Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend with us and share. And I hope that our people out there that are watching this, and we'll put this on YouTube as well, so it'll be out there for people to come back and see.
So Edina, Edwin gets to sit on his permanent residence, permanent residence for 1 year, and then he can apply for citizenship. That's right, isn't it?
Correct.
That whole year is probably going to fly, Edwin. But we look forward to seeing you when you need to apply for your citizenship.
Do you all do that too?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know that. All right. Okay, cool. No, good you told me, because hey, I didn't know this, because I think, Irina, you said that we'll have to wait for some time because of Abby's case.
You, Anna, and I've got Epi and Eden. You, Anna, and Eden will be able to apply, but Epi may have to wait a bit longer because of his time in Germany. So I just have to calculate the movement records when the time comes, so in a year's time, and then I can work out exactly what date Epi will be able to apply. But for the three of you, definitely can apply after 12 months.
Easy. Wow. Okay. So will you? So how does it work? We get in touch with you, or you'll send an email?
Either. We normally send out some information about citizenship. So once we wrap up your whole case, which we'll be in the process of doing right now, we'll send you out some information about citizenship, when you can apply, and what that costs, how long the process takes, and if you decide you want to use our services again, we'd be obviously more than happy to assist you.
Definitely, we are going to use your services. Yeah.
Oh no, that's great. And like Kathleen said, it's when you're working with families, you do get to know them so well, and it's like you're no longer kind of, you become like an extended family.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, please, yeah, definitely. So because I honestly, that's why I think I called you, because I didn't know what happens next, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Because we had a bit of a chat about it, didn't we? And but yeah, I find that when we're talking to people about immigration matters, sometimes it takes several conversations, or at least 2 to 3 conversations, because there's so much to know and understand, and there's all of these timelines and laws, and it takes a while for it to kind of sink in. Okay, this is, but yeah, definitely in a year's time, 3 of you can apply for sure. And Epi, I just need to analyse his. He might have to wait another year or so.
Okay, because he was thinking of his case was they're calling him to Germany, but he doesn't want to go till he gets the
citizenship.
So as early or as whatever it is. Yeah, because they've told him as soon as he gets he's already informed them about the permanent residency. So they've said because you said you can't be out of the country for 3 months or something like that.
Yeah, so there's 2 main residency rules for citizenship. The first one is, 3. The first one is you have to be a permanent resident or hold a permanent visa for 12 months before you apply. In that 12 months before you apply, you can't have been overseas for more than 90 days in total.
Okay.
So that's 3 months. And the final residency rule is that in the 4 years before you apply, you can't have been overseas for more than 12 months. And that includes whatever 90 days you might have used up in that 12-month period. So because he was there for 11 months in the last 4 years, that's why it'll push it back a bit. So if he goes overseas between now and end of the 12 months, that time will be added to the 11 months that he was overseas. So which is why I can't calculate. I mean, I can kind of get a rough estimate now on the basis that he doesn't go anywhere. But if he does travel in and out, all it does is it pushes his the date out further and further.
Okay.
Yeah. But once he gets his citizenship, he'll be free to
travel.
Go. Yeah, there are some instances, where you can bypass the 4-year rule. Now, 12 months and 4 years, and that depends. That's normally if you've got a spouse or partner that's an Australian citizen. So there are some curly rules around that. So we can look at that.
No, that won't be for him at the moment. No partner. He just wants to establish his career first.
Yeah, but citizenship for you and your family is what I would consider low stakes. When we did your visa, it was very much high stakes because the risk was huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so no, it'll be a much smoother process. Believe you me, we won't need to stress. We might have to get some extra police checks from overseas countries, other than New Zealand, but everything else plain sailing.
Thank you so much, Edwin, for your time today. We really appreciate it.
You're
the first one to join us.
Yes.
And it's been just a real blessing to have you share your story.
Thank you for inviting me, and anytime you require, I'm there. Elena knows that, So
thank you so much. And when we do come to Brisbane next, and have an information session, we'll be sure to let you know. You and Anna know, and your family are welcome to come and join us. And you'll be one of those people sharing your story on stage.
Exactly.
All right, take care, Edwin.
Have a lovely weekend.
Lovely day and weekend.
Thanks, Kathleen.
And say hi to Anna from us.
Will do. Will do.
Okay, bye.
So nice to meet you.
Bye.
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 Oh, how cool. Oh, that was awesome.
That was
You're
so
so good at
nice.
that, Kathleen. Isn't she good at that, everyone?
No.
You are,
Oh
you are
gosh.
good at
Luckily
that.
he's a good talker, and his story is just so lovely to hear him talk so frankly and so genuinely about his case and what he was going through. I can't imagine having to go through a process like that, and being on the just having to it's one of your children, it's impacting one of his children, and possibly his future in this country. So for him to be able to share that with us was just really heartwarming and really encouraging as well. Is that there can be some difficulties, but that is the benefit of having someone help you through the process, because they can guide you, they can inform you of what to expect, things that can be done to possibly reduce the risks in receiving a negative decision from the department. But I really was so nice to finally meet Edwin, because you hear of the name, the clients' names, and sometimes you never get to see them face to face. We only just deal with everyone via email and Facebook, but when you actually get to see them on the other side, you can put that name to the case, and it just makes it so much better to kind of when you're working on the cases.
Yeah, absolutely. They're real people, they're real families, they're real lives. And I think when you're in a position, when you're a professional, I just know how I feel when I'm dealing with professionals, especially in fields where I don't understand, how that might work, whether it's an accountant or a lawyer or, a financial planner or, medical. We entrust professionals with our life, and we entrust professionals to do what's best for us and have our best interests at heart. And, sad to say that we don't always have those experiences when we engage with professionals. Even just the lines of communication and having those lines open and not being made to feel stupid or less, because I know in my life I've experienced dealing with professionals, even in recent times, and they can be rude, they can be arrogant, they can be, really make you feel like you're insignificant, and that your life and the decisions for your life is no skin off their nose. It's not going to affect them directly, so they're not worried. All they want is take your money and leave. Whereas I just believe, as someone who is in the role of being a professional and having people entrust you with their lives and their future, that it's important to be a people person. Like, it's so important to be able to connect with people on that human, just be grounded and down to earth. That's how I think, not just for the work that we do, but to me it's good business too. I don't understand people who go into business and are horrible to their clients.
The wrong business, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, talking about fees and things like that, and a couple of times people said, how come you charge so much, and I guess, what is so much? What is the dollar figure? And for anyone who runs a business or who's ever run a business, they know that first and foremost they've got to make sure they cover overheads, they've got to make sure they cover wages, they've got to make sure that they set aside enough for taxes, GST, your BAS, your PAYG, workers' comp, subscriptions, training, it just goes on and on and on. And I was not a business person before I started this. I knew very little about business and bookkeeping, accounting, and ensuring, compliance and all those types of things. But, I've learned along the way that it's an enormous responsibility, and you don't want to be running a business where you're barely scraping by, because you might not be around in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. You don't want to be like that. If you're going to go into business, you want to have a business that's strong, that's thriving, and the reason being, more importantly than anything else, is so that you know that you are going to be there in a year's time, in 2 years' time, the business that we run, we have to be around for at least the length of time of what it takes to start a person on their immigration
Yes.
journey. I mean, some people's immigration journeys are, from start to finish, they might take anywhere between normally 2 years to sometimes 4, even 5 years, depending on what processes we have to go through for that person. So, it just makes sense to make sure that whatever you're pricing, you're covering your overheads, plus you're making enough to be around over time, because there's all of that accountability and stuff that you have to do. And I'm quite passionate about business now, and I have from my own experience, and I guess this is how we learn lots of things, is we can then appreciate and really appreciate what it takes to be able to build something from the ground out of nothing, to a point where we can be strong, we can be present, we can be available, and we can continue to ensure that we are being upskilled, keeping up to date. We've got Glenda coming through the ranks, one of our staff who's training, and just so that we can continue to get stronger and stronger. Kathleen's finishing off her master's, so she's going another level to what we both hold at the moment. So she finishes her.
I should probably explain the bags, everybody. This is why I've got bags under my eyes, is because that's once I get this done in June, I will no longer have bags under my eyes.
We'll have new bags because we'll just load you up with all of the complex cases that we get.
But can I just say as well, Edna, that when I first started in this business, when I first thought of going into this industry, I genuinely thought that I was going to start my own business. It was going to be easy. I got this. I'm going to do this. But the more I got to know what was involved in the business and what I, as a professional, had to do in order to keep my registration, and just it just really, I was baffled. I didn't realize the amount of things that needed to go into running my own migration agency. And so coming and working with you has really been just a godsend in terms of opening my eyes in terms of things that we need to do to keep ourselves compliant with the code, things that we need to do in order to keep ourselves fully informed of all of the, the migration changes in the Migration Law and Migration Act, and all of the professional development that we need to do. There are so many things involved in becoming a migration agent, a registered migration agent. So I hope people just really understand that it's not an easy industry to get into. And there has to be more than just making money. It's really the drive of helping people become permanent residents and citizens in this country, so that you can live here securely without any worries about laws changing and your status eventually changing down the track. And so, And also the other thing I wanted to mention about was just that permanent residence and then subsequently citizenship are two different processes. So I think sometimes people just say, oh, I want to get Australian citizenship, help me get Australian citizenship. But it's two different processes. It's two distinct processes. It's not one, big process that's just combined into one. It's two processes. So just keep that in mind for those who are going to be moving here, is that you, as Edna said, you might fall under that category who can apply directly for citizenship. And we hope that is a pathway for you to be able to apply for citizenship. We get really excited when people have been here on that particular date in 2001, and we can say, yes, you can apply for citizenship automatically. But in most cases, you will have to apply for permanent residency first before you apply for citizenship. So they are two distinct processes.
Yeah. And speaking of, I'll finish off. I know we've gone over our hour a little bit.
We always go over time.
But it's all good. The beauty about going live is people will be able to skip and fast forward bits and pieces. So I'll jump back into our slideshow and finish this part
Yeah.
off. And feel free, Kathleen, to jump in because I know there's always lots of information we try and cram into this hour. All right, so I was on the slide. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
coming through.
good. All right, so I was on the slide where we talk about, what permanent visas are available. We've got the family stream, we've got the work stream, excluding the 189 New Zealand stream. There's the business or investor stream. There's also one called the Global Talent Visa, and there is refugee and humanitarian visas, but I don't think we would fall under this category at all. But on that topic, though, I did think of something as I was putting this together. There are rare instances where people like this, and I'll talk about New Zealand citizens, but this kind of goes for people from around the world, not just New Zealanders. But there are rare instances where people are brought from New Zealand to Australia under witness protection. So this is a witness protection type situation where someone's brought over, they are given new identities, there's a whole lot that goes on, and anyone who knows about witness protection programs will be aware that this is a very, very, very sensitive area. But on the rare chance that someone might be listening to this, that this is going to impact or someone they know, it's really important that if someone is going through the witness protection program and is going to be moved to Australia permanently, that between the New Zealand and Australian government, because they are the ones that handle that witness protection program,
Right.
together, it's really, really important to ensure that that person or those family members are going to be given the opportunity to be granted a permanent visa of some kind. Now, the minister can grant that. This is something to be negotiated. Witness programs are not the same. They will address the needs of the person or persons that need to come over under the witness protection program. I have come across cases where people were not given permanent visas, and because of their unique, sensitive and highly confidential cases, a lot of their records are locked. You just cannot access them. That can have a real negative impact on their ability to apply for permanent visas later on here. So it was just something I thought about as I was putting this together. And, the chances of that is very slim, but it's something hopefully people out there that need to hear this will hear, because that is something that I think is significantly important.
Absolutely.
Okay, so next slide. We're almost finished. Now, I've just listed here the most common permanent visas. Now, this is what would be available to people, New Zealanders moving across. These aren't great by any means. In fact, it's quite slim. I'll be really frank. It is really, really difficult for New Zealand citizens to get permanent residency in this day and age if you're coming to live in Australia after February 2016, which is now. So probably the most common pathways we'll see is if people qualify for the resident return visa. Now, this is for New Zealand citizens that may have come to Australia before the 1st of September 1994 in any capacity other than with the Defence Force or as a diplomat, because those immigration processes are different. For a New Zealand citizen, if you came over as a child or even for a holiday, even just for a short stay, work, whatever, if you came over before the 1st of September 94, that's the resident return visa. The other common pathways we would see is the partner and child sponsor visas. So in this case, you would need to have a partner or a parent who is in a position to sponsor you. So it's a person who can be in a position to sponsor is someone who's considered a permanent resident, an eligible New Zealand citizen, that's the P and L platers or L and P platers, or an Australian citizen. You'd need to have a family member in specific cases, and those need to be assessed individually to be able to give a solid answer. That, and I don't know if I covered it in the next slide. No, I didn't. But just one more thing. If you were someone who'd lived here on, you were here on the 26th of February 2001. I think I do actually in a later slide. So I've just got a couple more slides to go. And these are less common pathways for permanent visas, but something worth pointing out. So you've got your business investor visas, your employer-sponsored visas, and your skilled independent visa. And this is points tested, so it's a points tested stream. I want to touch on the employer-sponsored visa. Employers are more likely to sponsor New Zealand citizens before they move to Australia. Once you're in Australia, employers really don't know the immigration process for New Zealanders, and they don't understand why New Zealanders would want to be sponsored, because we can already live and work here permanently. If you have the opportunity to come and work in Australia because you've got certain sets of skills that are needed or required, and Australia can't find those skills or what have you here already, you are in a much better bargaining position with your potential employer to sponsor you. Now, that's a whole another process, but be mindful if you come over to work for an Australian company, say, they are more likely to sponsor you if you're not in Australia, but once you come to Australia, it can be a lot harder for you. Not always, but what we see is, yeah, it doesn't. And then the skilled independent visa, this is a points tested stream, quite a tricky process. Again, it's the other 189, it's not the 189 New Zealand stream, it's the other 189. And this is where you have to have certain types of skills that you have to have a certain amount of points. And there's a whole calculator and process for that. And of course, the business investor visas is something you can look at the Department of Home Affairs website about those types of visas.
Yes.
I wanted to mention here the subclass 461 visa. This is a temporary visa, but it's available to members of the family unit of a New Zealand citizen. So if you're planning to move to Australia, or even if you are already in Australia, so long as you are not a protected SCV holder or you're not an eligible New Zealand citizen, you can help to sponsor your migrant family member. So if they come from another country other than New Zealand, so they don't have a New Zealand passport, you may be able to apply for this particular visa. But be mindful, it's a temporary visa. It allows them to live and work in Australia for 5 years at a time. It can be renewed under certain circumstances. And I won't talk too much about that.
We see a lot of New Zealand permanent residents who come here before they get their citizenship. They come here with their New Zealand citizen partner or spouse, and they apply for this particular visa. What are your thoughts on that? On that action?
On applying for this?
Yes.
What do you mean? Like,
I suppose if they can, would we say to them that they really should try and just get their New Zealand citizenship before they come to Australia?
Yes. As
opposed to relying on this visa.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I do. So if you have New Zealand permanent resident status and you want to move to Australia, yes, you can access this particular visa, but we would recommend you stay in New Zealand that bit longer. Get your New Zealand citizenship, get a New Zealand passport before coming across, because this visa, and we've talked about this quite a lot this year in our lives, is a nightmare because things can go wrong.
Yes.
The first round is normally easy. It's the second, third rounds that can become a real nightmare for families. So if you've got the opportunity to get New Zealand citizenship, do that first before. Yeah, rather than apply for this. Good point. Okay, so just to wrap up on what we've talked about, this is what we would consider being our recommendations. And I'll go through, I've just got my other screen on the side here, which is why I keep looking to the side, and go through. So the first thing I would recommend is do your research first. Understand your status. And when I say status, I'm talking about immigration status. Understand what your entitlements and non-entitlements are. So are you entitled to any kind of benefits or pensions or childcare or What happens if you lose your job? What happens if you get really sick? Disability, like understand what those things are. Education, health, Medicare. There are, what is there? There's National Disability Insurance Scheme and NDIS, and understand what those are. And if you've got children, understand what their, what kind of access they're going to be able to have. Familiarise yourself with the occupations list.
Yeah, that's a good one.
List. There's different occupation lists for different types of visas. So I talked about the employer-sponsored visas. There's a variety of those types of visas. Get familiar with the list. So if you're studying or wanting to study in New Zealand and you think you would like to move to Australia, have a look at what's on the skilled occupation list, because that might help. That might guide you in what decision you make as far as your future skills. So
I think that's a really great recommendation and suggestion for even non-New Zealand passport holders and citizens. Absolutely. People wanting to come here, there's just such a focus on skilled occupation and skilled visas here in Australia at the moment. They will be increasing the number of places in the skilled visa category. Yeah. So become familiar with that list, and I'll put a link to it in the chat box there on our Facebook page for those of you who might want to look at those lists.
Yeah, cool. I've put here, consider moving to a regional area of Australia. Now, regional means anywhere except for Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne. So even the Gold Coast is considered regional. Perth is considered regional, like the whole of WA, the whole of Northern Territory, whole of Tasmania, whole of South Australia, and large, almost all of Victoria except for Melbourne, almost all of New South Wales except for Sydney, and all of Queensland except for Brisbane. Now, this is the first time in history it's been like this, because other regional normally meant further out. So it's a really good time to have a think about where you want to move, because most people move to those major cities, but those major cities don't have as many visa options available. And the reason being is that when you live in a regional part of Australia, regions have special allocations to other types of visas that cannot be applied for in those major cities.
Exactly.
And you also have outer regional, so it's kind of layers of regional areas as well, depending on the state. So all the different states have agreements with the Australian government over what types of visas they can use to sponsor people on and so forth. So if you're wanting to come over, do your homework, get familiar with that, have a look at coming to regional areas, but with the regional areas, you want to tee that up with the skilled occupations list as well. Seek professional advice. Like, this is something we cannot emphasize enough. Professional advice helps you cut to the chase. It saves you a lot of time and research, and it helps you to get the answers that you need, and gives you something to focus on, and helps you to set some goals to help you achieve your, what you want, the permanent residency and dual citizenship in the future down the track. So that's something that we definitely recommend. And like I said, if possible, seek permanent residency before migrating to Australia. Like, don't think of it as I will worry about it when we get there, because often by the time you got here, you've already moved, settled, you've already set up a house, you've already set up a job.
You've been here for how long?
Yeah. So try and sort that out before you come over. In some cases, if possible, obtain Australian citizenship before having children. So, people in New Zealand may have a mum or dad who's an Australian citizen, and they can apply for Australian citizenship by descent. We say, if you're in that position, do it, especially before you have children, because once you're an Australian citizen, if you have children born outside of Australia, your children then have access to Australian citizenship by descent.
That pathway, yes.
Yeah, and there's lots of other reasons, but in cases where it might be possible, definitely apply for Australian citizenship if you're able to, and definitely before you have children. And I've also put here as a point, children born in Australia have a higher chance of receiving Australian citizenship, and that's because of that 10-year rule if they don't meet the at birth rule. I have come across so many people over the years that are living in Australia, fallen pregnant and gone back to New Zealand or elsewhere to have their child, and they bring their newborn baby back to Australia. That really robs them of the ability to be recognised as an Australian citizen, either at birth or on their 10th birthday. Once upon a time it was a nice thought to say that my baby was born in New Zealand, but immigration-wise, it really does penalise our children in the future.
Because they will still get New Zealand citizenship through their parent, regardless if they were born here.
Exactly.
So you're not taking anything away from them by having to return. So, and the other issue, oh gosh, it's just gone, but that whole point about, having your children here, about even that decision, like some parents might decide, after the child is born 2 or 3 years later, or even when the child was 7 or 8, they're going to go overseas, for a couple of years. Yeah. So just be thinking about those things as you're planning your lives about, how's this going to impact my children? Because you really don't want to jeopardize their opportunities, as well as having that extra pathway, having that Australian citizenship as well. Because if they want to come back here, then, they're set for life, Exactly. But if you take them out of the country before, that 10-year birthday, then of course, it just makes it much more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it happened within my own family, these types of situations, and I'm sure many families can relate to this. Yeah. But you're right, it's not only setting your child up for their life. So even if you decide to go back and live in New Zealand, your child has the ability when they grow up to live in either country safely and securely, because they have citizenship of both countries. But also you are helping the future generation. So if your child grows up and has children, they are then able to pass on citizenship by descent. Now in Australia, you can only pass on citizenship by descent for one generation.
Yep.
I've had people ask me, my grandparents, my grandfather was Australian. Can I get it through them? But unfortunately, Australia doesn't allow that. It's only one generation. So it has to be a mum or a dad that was an Australian citizen. All right. I think this is the last one. Planning for the future. Consider all of the risks of holding a 444 visa for life and whether you need to have a backup plan. So if you have got opportunities to come to Australia, and I totally get this, it's tempting, the money's good, the lifestyle's good. Yes, it's got snakes and stuff, but we've all learned to live with those.
Yep.
But have a backup plan. In your backup plan, maybe you have to look at getting income protection insurance just for yourself in case something were to happen, or maintain or obtain property back home. This is something that I wish we had have done. When we moved to Australia, we sold our home in New Zealand and we came to Australia in 2007. If I could do things again, I would have kept my home there or kept a home in New Zealand, just in case things went pear-shaped here. And of course, we know the cost of living in New Zealand is enormous, even just to buy a property now. Like the affordability of being able to buy even a simple property back home, particularly in places where, there's lots of work. The prices are just astronomical, pushing $1 million easily in some places. So that's something I wish we had have done, or at least, bought a piece of land or something like that, just so that we've got a bit of a backup plan to go back to if we need it. Because when you're on a 444 visa, which is a temporary visa for life, there is no guarantees of your security and stability here in Australia.
Especially in terms of getting any assistance from the government, because there's a waiting period for receiving government assistance, such as, allowances and benefits.
Well, there's a 10-year waiting period for 26 weeks worth of support, and that's it. That's a once in a lifetime thing. That's that. I mean, there's disability support pension. Like I said, do your research.
Yes.
And I thought I did my research before I moved to Australia, but I actually did not look at the immigration process. I looked at everything else: employment, housing, school, medical. I looked at those things, but I didn't even look at immigration because it didn't dawn on me that immigration would be a problem because I was a New
The
Zealand citizen.
last, yeah,
I
the
thought New
last
Zealand and
one.
Australia had this arrangement where, we could become citizens, and I, had a rude awakening when I just started to discover it wasn't like that at
Yeah.
all. And that's us for today. Whoa, that was an hour and a half. Yeah, obviously, hopefully, people just scroll through what they want to hear and chop and change. But yeah, thanks, Kathleen. It's so much
Thank
easier to
you
have someone
too.
to have a conversation with than talking to the screen and not knowing if
It
people want
is like we're just chatting. We're just having a conversation about our favorite topic.
such nerds when it comes to immigration. All right. Well, I think we've got a consultation coming up in a little while.
Yeah.
A few other, got some applications to lodge today, which is exciting. We're at lodgement stage for a few people. And yeah,
We'll see everyone next week. And we've got a guest next week too, don't we?
Oh, yes. Yes, so I guess next week she has got a really interesting story. Her whole immigration journey has been enormous too. So it kind of is just by chance that we've ended up with these two real enormous cases. And hers started off not simple, relatively okay, but it turned out to be uh, very, very stressful, and there was a number of things that we had to end up doing. But she's so happy to come and share her story with us next week. So she's a New Zealand citizen, and I'll give people a quick little preview. She's a New Zealand citizen, and her partner was from one of the Pacific Islands, and poor things were separated throughout this whole pandemic, which put a strain on their not their relationship, but so many people
Chris,
suffered
yeah.
being apart because of the border closures. So we had that as well as the whole immigration process. But she's going to be here to share her story with us next week. So I'm very looking forward to
Yes.
her joining us. And we've got a few others that have been in contact that would like to join us. So we'll do this for a while until we run out of people that want to share their stories. All right, have a good weekend, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
Bye
I'll
for
stop
now.
this first. I remember that. I'm getting better at this. Okay, bye for
Have a
now.
good weekend, everyone.